I'm Sarah Dimmock and I am a diversity manager for Cumbria Constabulary. About 7 or 8 years ago, we actually started a menopause support group within Cumbria Police because we realised there was a need for it, not only for staff, but for managers as well, because we're all working longer nowadays. Di, my colleague, who will introduce herself in a minute, sent an email out to all staff and officers within the constabulary, and the response that we got looking at or talking about the menopause was absolutely amazing, and we really needed to have a group to support people, whether they were dealing with staff issues or they were the people that were actually suffering menopause themselves, or partners, husbands, sons, fathers of people that were actually having the symptoms of menopause within the workplace.
Hi everybody, I'm Di Bradbury. I'm a police inspector within Cumbria Police, and my journey started I'm 55 now, and I started menopause when I was 40. So I'd been suffering on my own in silence, and when I thought I'd go and speak to Sarah, my colleague and my friend who's the diversity manager, and what I asked her was, what's in place for people experiencing menopause symptoms in Cumbria Police? And although there were action plans, they were sitting on shelves and nothing had been done with them. So Sarah and I decided that in order to support people like myself and like Sarah, we would start some menopause awareness sessions, and we'd start a menopause support group. And as Sarah said, this isn't just for people experiencing symptoms, it's for people managing the symptoms as well as in managers and supervisors in the workplace. But the purpose of this session is to raise awareness with managers, with supervisors, leaders, yourselves as the audience, of how to support staff in your workplace experiencing hormonal change. So we will focus on the menopause for the purposes of this presentation, but the information is equally applicable to those people going through gender reassignment, and we will also look at andropause, or the male menopause, as well.
So the first session we ever did for managers on awareness about the menopause, we didn't actually tell people what the menopause actually was. And we were asked at the end, you've given a great presentation, but you didn't tell us what it is. So this slide tells you that the menopause is a natural process when the ovaries stop producing eggs and menstruation ceases. So it's the end of the reproductive period. An average age of a woman, which I'm typical, I started when I was 51, which is the normal age, as doctors would say, but it can happen anytime throughout your life. I had a friend who was 29 when they started with menopause, and unfortunately that ended their opportunity to have children. I'm 58 now and I'm still going through it, so I've been perimenopausal, if you like, for 7 years. In rare cases, it says there about you can start happen from 40, and 45% of the workforce are over 50 now. So you can see how this can affect the working environment. This equates to about 4.5 million women over the age of 50 in employment. So just to also say, before going to the next slide, we have 2007 officers and staff within the constabulary, and between 41 and 55 years of age, we have 199 staff and 183 officers. 55 of are over, those over 55, there's 73 staff and 8 officers. So, we're talking about quite a hefty amount of people within the workforce.
Yeah, and I think I'm in a very exclusive club, because I am only one of 8 officers in Cumbria Constabulary who are over the age of 55 or over. There's just 8 of us, and I know that this is why it's so important, particularly for our organisation. Culturally, many years ago, people, women left the police way before they got to menopause. They had left when they had children. They very rarely came back, and with retirement ages, if you joined young enough, you'd be retired at 48, so 50 before you started menopause symptoms traditionally. Our workforce is changing, as will yours be. It makes it even more important that we now step up and make sure we're supporting people experiencing hormonal change in the workplace. So we're going to look at andropause. So the andropause symptoms, and this is referred to as the male menopause very often. The symptoms may be similar to the menopause, but it's not a sudden drop in testosterone. So with women, it's your drop in estrogen levels that are contributory to the menopause. But with men, unless you have a specific condition called hypergonadism, it's unlikely to be hormonal. So as a manager, if I was having a conversation, a sensitive conversation with a male colleague about this, I would always suggest that they go to the doctors and have some blood tests or whatever is relevant for them to find out what's going on. But if it isn't hormonal, if it's not hypergonadism and it doesn't affect many people, then it could be, or it's more likely to be, commonly caused by lifestyle factors such as not enough sleep, poor diet, drinking too much alcohol, smoking. But the effects can feel the same. So whether it's the way that you're living your life or whether it is hormones, it can still feel like this for men. Stress, depression, anxiety, erectile dysfunction, loss of libido, and mood swings. And certainly, other than the erectile dysfunction, those apply to menopause as well. But there are, of course, genital issues of dryness for women. So although it might not be hormonal with men, it doesn't mean that we mustn't take it very seriously and offer that support. Thanks, Sarah.
Right, the power of hormones. Don't forget, hormones affect you at every age. You think of your teenagers going through their teenage years and their hormones and the growing pains, if you like, so that they actually, they're there that change mood swings and all sorts of things while we're actually moving up the ladder and moving up the age spectrum. So hormones, if we look at this, we'll talk about estrogen and testosterone. Estrogen creates your breasts to grow, hair to grow, creates your figure. Testosterone is your body, again, hair growth, voice breaking, muscle growth, it increases. So there are, it's not just about females, this as well. People who are gender reassigning, for instance, will have be given certain hormones to make things grow and to change their body shape. So we have to consider those that are going through gender reassignment as part of this journey as well. So we need to make sure that, and also women that are going through or undergoing IVF. This is something else to consider when you're talking about giving hormones.
I'm coming in, darling. No, but I need to come through.
This is for the NH. Right.
Okay, so menopause and hormonal changes in the workplace. This is the crux of this awareness session, really. So why do we need to talk about it? Why have Sarah and I spent 7 years constantly talking about menopause in Cumbria Police, and why is it right that you do as well? It's because if we want to value our staff, if we want to ensure that we are retaining our staff, that we are positively selling our organisations in terms of recruitment, that we are ensuring that women experiencing a hormonal issues still have the right entitlement to progression, that we must have an open and supportive culture. And when we have these things, we gain strong reputational benefits. What better than people within your own organisation selling the support services, and you are the NHS. You should be absolutely at the top of your game in supporting people going through hormonal changes. We can avoid absence through offering the right support. And actually, it's a legal, moral and statutory obligation. So employers need to know the health and wellbeing implications of the menopause. You need to know them in order to effectively manage, support your staff. In an ageing organisation, and we all are working longer, and as we get more gender equal in the workforce of the future, the pressure will be on us more and more as managers, supervisors and leaders to make sure we understand the issues affecting our workforce. The strong reputational benefits have been highlighted by Claire McCartney. And Claire McCartney is from the CIPD, and that's the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. Yes, thanks, Sarah. But she says, and I'm just looking across at the quote, firstly, is a really strong reputational benefit for those organisations that are creating menopause-friendly workplaces. And you should be able to attract people and retain predominantly female talent through supportive, forward-thinking approaches to menopause support. And interestingly, within the last week, Sarah sent me some information that the top 100 companies, that's the top 100 employers, supposedly the best ones to work for, less than a third of them have published their menopause support, their menopause policies. So we must avoid being classed out with that third. You know, we must make sure. And it was interesting when Sarah and I Googled the NHS and looked for your menopause policy, we couldn't find it. So it's time to really think what are the standards that we're raising? What are we really going to lead from the top and shape our approach towards menopause support? So what we thought we'd looked at, please forgive us, we did all this on open source, but we looked at NHS and North Cumbria Integrated Care. So you've got 4,000 staff. If the NHS workforce comprises 74% women, and it does approximately, that means you've got approximately 2,960 women making up North Integrated Care. If women over 50 make up 45% of the national workforce, therefore that means that around 1,332 women are over 50 in Cumbria Integrated Care. So with that amount of females of that age, you can say that they'll either be perimenopausal or about to be, and they certainly will be in the length of the career that they've got left, what support packages. And as again, we couldn't easily find the exact data for your own policies within our open search.
Right, menopause symptoms. These are just a few of the major ones, because there are a lot more than what we've put on the slide here. When I'm in one particular police station, if I walk up and down the stairs, I get electric shocks on the banister, and that is a symptom of the menopause. So we have to, consider that this is not the full list. There are loads more, and it affects individual women, emotional and physical health as well. Being aware of basic needs is necessary to support women going through the transition. Linda Bailey, who is a co-director of Talking Menopause Consultancy, told us about the impact of menopause had with her life. She says, I had no idea that mental health challenges and cognitive challenges that I faced would absolutely knock me over. I went from kicking front doors in, literally, to hiding behind my front door when she worked for the police in West Midlands. My husband had to take me to work with him because I couldn't function. That is how debilitating it was.
Yeah, I think it's so important to understand that the menopause affects people in so many different ways. There's this mythical 2 in 5 women don't experience any symptoms. We've never met any of them, have we?
We haven't.
However, my own personal journey was really fraught. So I actually had my son, when I was 38, but by the time I was 40, I was experiencing my first hot flushes. It was clear I was perimenopausal. By the time I was 41, that was it, my period had stopped, and I've never had one since. But although I recognised it as menopause because my mum and my sister had gone through menopause at the same age, what I didn't reckon on, because we hadn't talked about it as a family, were the emotional impacts as well as the physical ones. So for me, my hair started falling out. That was one of the first really distressing things. And then the hot sweats were really caused me anxiety, because I'd get a feeling of like doom. It's so strange to say, but I'd get this really feeling like of impending doom. Then I'd got the hot sweat, and then I'd feel like vomiting. And when I was really bad with symptoms, this was happening every 10 minutes. I was getting hundreds of them a day and through into the night. And at that period of time, because I'm talking, well, 13, 14 years ago, I was one of the only uniformed female inspectors. So all my meetings were full of men, and I was sitting as the only female experiencing these problems. I decided my approach was to be really open about it, and actually the men were wonderful. They'd run and try and put fans on and the air conditioning and open windows and be very attentive and supportive. But not everybody's like me. Some people might try and hide that. And what I did hide, actually, was the loss of confidence that I felt, and the loss of identity. I began to wonder who I was. My confidence in my own ability at work really suffered. And eventually I did open up to somebody, and luckily they were very supportive. But all of the things you can see in front of you, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Sarah gets electric shocks. I mean, this isn't on the list, but she gets electric shocks. So it's so complex. When people sit down with you, they are trusting you that you will listen, and you need to listen and understand that whilst they may not understand really what's happening, the fact that you are willing to listen and think about support will be so important to them.
Right, it's a national problem. GPs aren't really trained a lot in menopause unless you get a menopause specialist. The House of Commons Women's and Equalities Commission found, they've done a report, that women can't trust the doctors to diagnose peri or menopausal symptoms correctly. This adds confusion and uncertainty to those experiencing symptoms. Women can believe they have a serious or terminal illness because you think you've got dementia. Mm-hmm. You can think you've got cancer. You can think about all sorts of things. 39% said their perimenopausal was not diagnosed correctly, and 25% said their menopause was not diagnosed correctly. Women often have to revisit at least 3 times to the doctor before they prescribe medication. And women, menopause symptoms are frequently misdiagnosed as mental health problems and a standalone anxiety issue. Antidepressants are often prescribed for it rather than HRT. Women aren't dealing with the causes of the symptoms, which then persist and can be frustrating and frightening for them. So it's about dealing with the whole package rather than, thinking, oh, well, it must be mental health problems, it must be anxiety. It's looking at the bigger picture.
I think that what Sarah's just explained to you there is really important. If GPs aren't recognising it, and if women themselves are thinking, I've got dementia or I've got cancer, they're not thinking about it, the onus is on employers even more to have a support package, policy, procedures that help address and help people recognise. But if we fail as employers to support women or anybody experiencing hormonal change, and they're also failed by the health service, by the approach of a GP, and they also don't recognise it themselves, it's really a recipe for disaster. And we are in control. We now have a chance and an opportunity to make a difference to women and people experiencing hormonal changes in your workplace and in ours. So I'd like to think now about what aspects of the working environment could exacerbate symptoms of menopause. Obviously, you're the NHS, so you'll have working practices that you'll think of. For me, for the police, two of the main ones that come out, especially for response officers, so those are people who, you know, go to jobs in and out of the panda cars. It's a really heavy kit that we wear, and it's the hats. If you're experiencing severe hot flushes, it can really make your life very uncomfortable. And we've suggested simple things to people like just risk assess where you're going and leave your body armour off while you're driving. Obviously not if you're going to an IR and you think it might be an immediate response and you think there might be violence at the end of the call, but you can. And also another one, frequency of needing to use the loo. If you work as a single crewed officer, so that's you're on your own and you're in the rural, you could be driving, you know, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 miles a day. You need to think about where your loo stops are going to be. And that does need to be part of your patrol planning. So these are things we've suggested for our teams. It'll be different for your own. So aspects of the working environment that do make it difficult. I've just brought them up. Working shifts, temperature of working environment, inadequate access to toilet facilities. You will have outreach workers, physical demands of the job, design of uniform, having to maintain your position for long periods of time. So why have we brought them up? Why have we put these on a slide? It's so that you can consider that these are potentially the problems that your staff might be facing. And it just gives you that little bit of forward thinking and planning to say, if somebody comes with this issue, what are we going to do about it? And you could have an organisational policy which could have options around these main affecting symptoms.
So we talk about attendance management implications. So you need to understand the level of people that are actually going off sick with symptoms of the menopause. So a comparison of the proportions of respondents to Cumbria Constabulary, because we did some research ourselves, reporting menopause-related sickness absence, presentation and leavism compared to the national average are presented in what our findings were. 46% of those that responded to Cumbria Constabulary said that they had disclosed to their line manager that they were experiencing symptoms of the menopause. 54% said that they had not disclosed to their line managers that they were experiencing the menopause. Respondents in Cumbria Constabulary were less likely to have told the line manager that they were experiencing symptoms of the menopause compared to the national sample, because we did a survey of not only Cumbria but nationally we did for all police forces. 47% had disclosed to their line manager nationally. 10% of respondents in Cumbria said that they had taken sickness absence because they were experiencing symptoms and hadn't told the manager why they'd gone off sick. 59% said that they had attended work despite feeling that they should really have taken sickness leave because of their symptoms. Menopause, and 35% said that they had taken annual leave or rest days because of the symptoms. So it's a big issue. We should be recording whether or not people actually go off sick with symptoms of the menopause, because then we understand what the problem actually is, rather than just letting it go and just taking what somebody feels embarrassed about talking about.
Yeah, it's not right that you're suffering a hormonal impact and you're taking leave rather than seeking other options, because it might be, if you have the right support in the workplace, you could still come in. So we really need to understand. I don't know if you've done something yourselves, a survey within integrated care, but it might be really interesting to do so.
And of course, 10% leave the jobs because of menopause, because they lose their confidence.
Yeah. And that's unacceptable, really, isn't it? It's unacceptable. What we've found is there's a real disparity between pregnancy, which is the other thing that affects women, and the menopause. So every single woman will go through menopause. Not every single woman will go through pregnancy, but there are far more protections, legal protections for pregnant women. I'm not saying that's, I mean, it's absolutely right. It's absolutely right. But it's not right that there aren't any legal protections for menopausal women. And actually, Sarah and I have done quite a lot of reading on government websites, and there's no clear explanation as to why. And this is why it's even more important that without those protections specifically around the menopause, that we understand and support our staff. So you can't just simply tell the manager. We call this the last taboo, because it's not hard. It's not hard anymore, and thank heavens it's not hard anymore to say I've got responsibilities for looking after elderly parents. We talk about mental illness far more openly than we ever did, and that's a wonderful thing, but we still don't talk about the menopause. So a recent survey by the University of Nottingham, who looked at 2,161 women, less than a third told the line manager that they're experiencing menopause issues, yet 99% of them had menopause symptoms at work. 97% of them felt that it affected their work, but less than a third were telling the manager. So what does that say? Either they didn't have the confidence to, or they didn't trust the manager, but something is not right. And it gives us an opportunity, doesn't it, to do diagnostics within our organisations, our teams, skills of managers and leaders, to see what we need to understand. And 81% felt sleep deprived, 75% lost concentration, 69% felt anxious. Not surprising then that they're feeling it affects the work. But if they're not telling the managers that, or managers will see is this person's not performing the same. And that's where you tread a really fine line between supporting people and taking the route of competency and performance measures, which isn't particularly the right thing to do. So you can see the quotes up there. I won't particularly read through them, but looking at the University of Nottingham and the British Occupational Health Foundation survey, 50% of women took time off work to deal with the symptoms and didn't tell the managers the real reason for absence. And the Women's Equality Commission in 2022, the most recent bit we could find, 39% of women were taking time off and not telling the manager the real reason. It's just not right. And let's not be part of organisations that encourage that culture. We need to be pushing forward in a supportive way.
Right, the legislation. You can see up there what the legislation applies: the Equalities Act, Health and Safety at Work, Human Rights. You can look at the protected characteristics under the Equalities Act, which gender, age and disability, which can apply to the menopause. And of course, if we get it wrong, you could end up in an employment tribunal. The Employment Lawyers Association, the ELA, from February 2017 to 2021, they've told us that there was 78,968 employment tribunals, but only 44 of those related to menopause. The ELA felt that it's significantly unrepresented due to the unwillingness of women to come forward. So they reckon that there's a lot more employment tribunals that should happen, but because it's a taboo subject, women are still not actually thinking about their actual employment rights. Right, just a quick case study, and this is about the Scottish law system. It's Davis versus the Scottish court system. And Mrs. Davis had worked for them for a number of years and tribunal services for over 20 years and had a flawless record. So she was a really good employee. She'd been treated for ongoing menopause-related symptoms, including excessive bleeding and ongoing urinary tract infections. Reasonable adjustments had been implemented to help her manage her symptoms, including a change in duties and being relocated closer to toilet facilities. She was being prescribed medication for her urinary tract infection in the form of powder, which was dissolved in water. On one occasion, she returned to her desk to find her water jug, which was her water jug, had been disturbed, and that two men had glasses of water. She could not remember whether she put the powder in the jug of water or not, and this raised her concerns accordingly. A health and safety investigation took place, in which the health and safety team were found to have overstepped their remit in their findings and subsequent report, the detail of which the tribunal found had influenced the outcome and disciplinary hearing, leading to Mrs. Davis's dismissal. Mrs. Davis brought a claim against the courts for discrimination on the grounds of disability, and she won. She was awarded approximately £19,000 in compensation.
When you think about that the woman was disciplined for forgetting that she'd put a medication in her water jug, and two people had drank out of it. She was disciplined for that. Can you imagine? We talk about hormonal changes. If anybody's been pregnant, they'll know that you can really get brain fog with your pregnancy. Can you imagine that? This woman was pregnant. She forgot she put a medication into her water, so we could discipline her. Would not happen. Yeah, it's quite outrageous that an organisation in 2018 disciplined a woman for forgetting that she put medication in her water. We need to avoid this at all costs. We don't want to be part of that organisation, do we, Sarah?
No, absolutely not. It's important because I'll just bring all the things up here. You can read this for yourself, really, but it's about supporting people, making sure that they feel valued, and what's the impact on the organisation, but also what's the impact on that particular person. This slide links directly to the previous case study that we've just talked about, where people aren't taking into consideration somebody's actual needs or why they are dealing with their symptoms in a certain way, or having to deal with their symptoms in a certain way. So, as I say, this by being an organisation that actually supports people, you are supporting not only your employers and workplace, but you're supporting your staff, and they will feel more valued.
Absolutely. And I think the last line on that slide there is, it's inappropriate management and lack of leadership which will let people down. And the whole point of Sarah and I talking to you today is to raise awareness, just so you're fully conscious around what the expectations are of the organisation, but also start thinking about what have you got in place to support people going through hormonal change. And you know what? If you're listening to this and you're a manager, a supervisor, a leader, it is your role. And we've got, maybe it's different in the NHS, but we certainly do have lots of very young people managing, supervising in our organisation. And what we say to them is, you want to be a manager, then you are going to have sensitive and difficult conversations, because it's part of your role. But it's not just about the menopause, it's about encouraging all of our employees to discuss health, cultural, religious, personal issues, as well as those arising from the menopause. If you'd approached someone to trust in you to give them that support. I put something in purple there. This is a quote that we got from a mental health expert, and it's a line that they use when somebody comes and speaks to them about mental health issues, the first response. I can see that this is really affecting you and having a profound effect on you. What can I do to support you? And this is some of the support awareness training that we are giving to our managers. This is a line you can use. Support will encourage reduction in absenteeism, and it will increase well-being. You need to understand your own attendance management processes as well, because although somebody might be experience hormonal change, there may also be separate capability issues which you would still deal with by your normal processes. And whatever you do, don't tell someone to get a grip. Recently, a member of the constabulary asked for support during a meeting because they didn't feel able to do the talking bit, and the manager said, get a grip. Absolutely wrong response. That person will never go to that manager again, and now has a really dim view of Cumbria Constabulary. Despite all the work we've been doing, we've still got that attitude, and it's not right.
Right, support services. We have what we call a fair passport in place, whereby somebody that is suffering symptoms can write it down with a trusted manager, and then if the managers change, because within the police our managers change all the time, instead of having to explain why they're doing what they're doing, they can hand the fair passport over. We don't just use it for menopause, it's for other disabilities or other needs such as cultural issues. If somebody's celebrating Ramadan and fasting, then they might not need to go to certain jobs, so they need to know about that. So we'll use it for all sorts of things that we need. Access to Work is a Job Centre Plus initiative where people will come into the workplace and determine whether or not somebody's workstation, not their job, but their workstation is appropriate for them. And if it is reasonable to amend it, then we will do it. Remploy Counselling Services, another Job Centre Plus initiatives whereby people can get 6 months counselling or psychotherapy or what they actually need for free. The criteria for this is they have to be in work, whether they're off sick or they're actually in work. So they need to do that. We have our menopause support group, and we have SPOCs in all areas of the constabulary. So they are there to support not only the staff, but managers as well, to help them have those conversations with people, to help them deal with issues. So we've also got Federation and Unison to provide support, and they're very supportive of the work we do. But we've also put some websites on there to look at, things that are for transgender and for, other people that may suffer from hormone changes. So you can actually Google those and go into them and see what other help is available there. Don't get bogged down with language, terminology. Just remember that we're all people.
Yeah, people first. I think the next slide, it's any questions. So if you've got any questions, you can talk about them, think about them now. And Sarah and I have provided our contact details to your organisation. So if there's anything you'd like to ask us personally, please do. Please contact us and we will do our best to get back to you.
And we're very open and honest, so we will tell it how it is.
Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you've got something from this. And I hope we've raised a little bit of awareness and maybe helped you offer more support to people in your workplace. Thank you so much.
Thank you.